Today I'm joined by racing driver Abbie Eaton. A true powerhouse in the world of motorsport, Abbie is a two-time British champion with over 2 decades of track experience in various motorsport disciplines. Also known as a fearless test driver on the Grand Tour, she joined Jeremey Clarkson, May and Richard Hammond on their wild adventures and challenges. However, in 2021, during the W Series, Abbie suffered a harrowing crash at the Circuit of the Americas that left her with a broken back and navigating physical and mental recovery. So, join me as we explore the life of Abbie Eaton and her unbreakable spirit.
So my background's motorsport. I've been racing since I was about 10 years old, and I kind of got into it through my dad. So I kind of grew up around, cars and bikes and things with engines and going fast. And it was really a fantastic childhood. And, it was only really a matter of time until I kind of pestered for me to start. And I started when I was 10 years old. Family run teams. So my dad would run initially it was go-karts, and then we moved into cars when I was 15. Dad would build the cars, prepare them and run them. And I would rock up and do the driving. So, it was a really fantastic childhood. I learned a lot, spent a lot of time with my dad on race weekends as well. Been able to be fairly successful at it, which is, it's a fairly it's not a straightforward industry to be in. Yes, you have to have talent, but you also need to have the funding to race and all that kind of stuff as well. So, there's been years and years of hard work to be put into, where I've kind of got to, I suppose, the last 5-10 years of my racing career. And thankfully, through majority of that time, I've very rarely hurt myself. I very rarely crashed. I remember my first crash, I think, was in karting when I was about 12, and I ended up breaking my arm, and that was pretty much as bad as I'd ever had. And then fast forward to, when was it now? 2023. So it was end of 2021. And then it wasn't even a crash, but I ended up running over what's called a sausage curb, which is this they're supposed to be like speed bumps to effectively put people off running over and doing what's called track limits, where you can gain an advantage from running wide or cutting a corner. And I ended up running over one of those, and I ended up breaking my back. So it's I've been lucky for majority of my career, but towards the end of where I'm at now, I did a pretty big injury to myself.
And then what exactly happened in the accident then, if you don't mind explaining it?
So we were racing in Texas, Circuit of the Americas, and I was racing in a series called W Series, which was the world's first female-only single-seater championship. And we basically went along with the Formula One races and travelled with them. I think we did eight race weekends in total. And this was actually the last race weekend of the season. And I'd never actually been to the circuit before, so really, really cool circuit. I remember doing a track walk with my engineer and all the other girls, and we were kind of walking around, and these sausage curbs on the side of the track, I remember being like, God, they are some like mean curbs. They're probably maybe 30 centimeters high and probably just as wide, and probably maybe a meter and a half long. And we all commented saying, you don't want to go with one of those, because if you do, like, that's going to really, cause some damage to the car basically, and probably hurt yourself. And ended up that and in the first race I ended up kind of running slightly wide out the exit of one of the corners, and I just clipped one of the curbs, but the momentum kind of took me kind of in that direction. And basically there was kind of 3 curbs set perpendicular to the circuit, and it kind of pulled me towards one and then hopped me off one, and then I basically landed directly on another one, which kind of stopped me dead and then threw me to the air. And on that kind of initial compression, I ended up breaking my back in a couple of places. So I don't advise picking a fight with a sausage curb.
And then obviously, what happened next? So you were in the car, and obviously, did you realize that it was your back, or kind of what was going through your head?
Yeah, I knew instantly I'd broken my back. I kind of heard it. I heard it crunch. It was like an empty Coke can or something being crunched. And the pain was instant, and it was kind of in between my shoulder blades, right in the centre of my back. And I thought, yeah, I've definitely just broken my back. And I remember thinking that when I was looking up at the sky, because it sent me up, vertically. And I remember looking at blue sky thinking, I've just broken my back. And I know one of the other girls, Beitska, she's broken her back previously. And I remember in that moment, when in the air thinking, oh man, I've just broken my back. Oh, Beitska broke her back. And it's strange because when you're in those kind of situations, I think obviously it's different for each person, but some people, everything goes into kind of like slow-mo and everything slows down, your thought process slows down, and you have time to think about all sorts of stuff. Because again, I remember thinking, oh man, like my mum and dad are going to be really worried, and they're going to be thinking, what on earth's going on? And they were in England, so the time difference was, I think it was probably early hours of the morning that they were watching it while we were racing at like 6 p.m. in the US. So all this kind of stuff was going through my head, and I didn't actually want to think about, the prospect of potentially being paralysed or, having spinal cord damage or anything like that. And again, this was all kind of while I was up in the air, and then I had to land again. And I'm like, oh man, like I hope this doesn't do worse damage than kind of what I'm at. And hit the deck, landed, and obviously that hurt again. I don't remember thinking, oh, it hurts more. I just remember that as soon as I heard my back crunch, just the pain was like, 20 out of 10, and it kind of didn't fluctuate from there. It just stayed there. So I landed, and straight away, I was still rolling, hadn't stopped the car. I was on the steering wheel you have basically buttons that you can press to talk to your engineer who's stood in the pit lane. So I instantly pressed the button, and I remember trying to speak and I couldn't speak because, what you kind of forget is where your spine is. Obviously your ribs are kind of everything, all your torso is all attached to your spine. And I'd effectively shortened myself, and so my torso had moved, all my ribs had all moved as well. So I was winded, and, the pain, when you're in such intense pain, it's very difficult to sometimes get your words out. And I remember just trying to say I've broken my back, and because even speaking was sore, to be able to, I suppose that kind of movement through your body to speak. And I remember my engineer coming on and saying, "What, we can't hear you," and I've really, really hurt my back. I've really hurt my back. All the while thinking, I don't really want to move. So I remember kind of trying to lift my hand up to the wheel as kind of gently as possible, because I thought if I go to grab the wheel, I don't know what that's going to do to the injury. So really gently and trying to speak kind of softly if I could. And then he said, okay, we'll try and get someone to you. So then I kind of pulled up. I had a decision in my mind of, this was probably like 2 or 3 corners from where the pit lane was. And I thought, right, well, do I try and make it back to the pit lane where I know people are, or do I pull off here? And the pain was excruciating, and I thought, well, if I pull off here to kind of get out the way, I'm going to have to go kind of on the grass, which is a little bit bumpy. And I was like, I really don't want to do that. But I was like, it is still probably, because at the speed that I was basically rolling, I'm like, it's going to take me like minutes and minutes to get there, and I don't want to risk someone coming around and hitting me. So in the end, I just I couldn't even have the kind of I suppose strength to be able to use the clutch pedal to come to a controlled stop. So I kind of saw up ahead there was a bit of an access road, which is where people kind of come on and off the track, and it's they're marked by the orange squares. So if you're ever in trouble on the circuit, you look at the barriers, and where there's an orange square, that's basically your area to get off the circuit. So I thought, right, okay, I'll just try and pull up onto that access road, because it should be kind of fairly flat, but I know I've got to kind of go over some grass to get there. And I kind of pulled off, got to it. I didn't have the it was too painful to press the clutch or press the brake. I just kind of came to a stop, and I immediately kind of took the steering wheel off, because you kind of go into panic mode. And I was thinking, well, I remember I was hyperventilating, but I was trying not to have big breaths because it hurts so much. So I was taking like short, shallow breaths. And I was thinking, God, I need to get help. Like someone needs to come and help me. And I remember I was sat there, and the cars came around once. So that was 2 minutes. So it was a 2-minute lap. So that had already been 2 minutes. And then they came around again, and still no one had got to me. So that was like 4 minutes I was sat there by myself. So I remember I put the wheel back on and I basically started swearing, and I was like, why have they not stopped this race? Like, I need help. I've broken my back. What's going on? Like, I'm still here. Like, I need help. I need help. And my engineer was saying, we're trying to get someone to like basically pass the message on. And eventually a rescue truck came to me, and there's probably 3 or 4 people that kind of came around the car, and they were saying, right, we need to push you back basically through the gap to get off the circuit. Can you turn the wheel? Can you turn the wheel? And I was like, no, I've broken my back. And they didn't quite, I think they were so focused on trying to clear me out of the way for the cars on the circuit that they were almost a little bit panicky and not really taking on board what I was actually saying. And so they kept trying to push me, and they were like, ma'am, you need to turn the wheel. You need to turn the wheel. And in the end, I just stopped trying to get my point across, and I just sat there with my arms like this. And eventually they got on the wheel and were like pushing me back, a little bit kind of cross with me. And then they knelt down to me and they said, what's the matter with you? Why can't you start? And I was like, I've broken my back. And then, everyone kind of kicked into action. And there was a guy called Griff, and he kind of sat with me, and there was another girl who it was her, I think it was her first race weekend actually, and her first day on the job. And I tried to, there was no point, I suppose, panicking. There was no point trying to create a fuss. I just thought, I've got to stay as still as possible, because I don't want to make it worse. I can still move my feet at the moment. I don't want to risk anything. And they're going to have to basically extract me from this car because I'm not moving. I'm not making any attempt to get out. And every single race weekend, whichever circuit you go to, they have an extraction team that basically on the Thursday of a race weekend, they will come to each championship and basically do a mock extraction. And we all, used to take the mick out of which driver got picked to do it, because it was always really, really hot, and you have to get fully kitted up, and you have to kind of sit there in a, a neck strap and blocks on your head, and it's, it's not the most pleasant of things to experience. And I remember thinking, right, well, you're gonna have to do it for real. And yeah, they were really good. It took them a while for the actual rescue medical truck to get to me as well, because they were on the other side of the circuit. So I was probably sat there for like a good 10 minutes, just, I suppose, with my thoughts, thinking, what's the next step? And they finally got to me and lifted me out of the car. And the way that kind of happens is with a single seater, so little, if you look at it, it's a Formula 3 car. You basically, there's like a safety cell in the car, so it's like a metal safety cell. And because there's no seat, you mold a seat around your body. So when you get into the car, there's usually a bag full of beads, and you basically lay in it, and it'll solidify around you, and that's your kind of seat position. But it sits within this metal tray, and the metal tray's got basically like attachments to it. So they'll come and attach everything on and basically lift you out and then put you down and put you on a stretcher. So that all happened, and we went to the medical centre on site, which is a really, really amazing facility that COTA have got. It's like, I felt like I was in hospital straight away. They did an x-ray on my back and basically, straight away said, right, we've got to airlift her to whatever hospital they could find. And I remember at the time, they were saying, do you want some drugs? Do you want some drugs for the pain? And I remember saying no, because I was 95% certain I'd broken my back, but I thought, in the chance that it isn't a break, maybe I might be able to race tomorrow. So I refused painkillers. I was like, no, because I know if you give me morphine or anything, I'm not going to be able to race. So I kept refusing it. And then when we got up into the helicopter, I thought, no, I need some painkillers now. So I said, I in my head, I was thinking, even if I haven't broken my back, the amount of pain that I'm in right now, there's not a chance I'll be able to race tomorrow. So yeah, I had some painkillers, got to the hospital, and they did a CT scan, and then they found that I'd broken my back. And yeah, that was that. And first time my mum and dad from the hospital bed with my neck collar on. I thought, because I put my mum and dad through hell, I thought, right, I'll just try and make a joke of it. So I had my neck collar on and I'm laid like flat on the bed, and I got the phone and I just FaceTime my mum. Bearing in mind, again, it's like 3 a.m. It's like, "Hi, mum. Yeah, I've broken my back." And then she's like, "What do you mean?" So yeah, that was that. Thankfully, I didn't need any metal work or anything doing. I just had to be in this really heavy duty neck and back brace for 4 months. And basically, wasn't allowed to do anything. I had to be kind of horizontal, very, very, very minimal physio from probably the second month onwards. And yeah, it was an interesting part of my life. I'm quite I'm a northern girl, so I've been brought up to kind of just get on with things and, mind over matter very much took hold. I'm a very active person. I always have been. And I think if I'd actually tried to make friends with the fact that I had to be immobile for 12 weeks, my brain just wouldn't be able to handle it. So I basically turned my mindset onto, right, my job now for the next however long is to get better. And so it was to eat properly, to sleep properly, to do exactly what the experts are saying, to do everything physio like 100%, do everything that I could. And thankfully my mum and dad basically took me back home, and mum and dad basically looked after me and made cooked me food, and because I couldn't sit and eat my dinner. Like I had basically probably a 5-6 minute window where I could kind of sit up and eat before it got too painful. I had to lay down again. So yeah, I got to the end of it, and I wouldn't say I'm stronger for it in terms of like mental resilience. I think I've always had that, and I think probably everyone in that, or most people in that situation, I would imagine, would you have to get on with it, because if you break your back, like it's not as though like a broken arm, like your back is crucial for everything, any movement, absolutely everything. So you have to heal as best you can, and yeah, I wouldn't advise doing it again. I try and avoid doing that again, and I wouldn't advise anyone else to try it. But yeah, it happened, and it was a part of my life, and I suppose it's part of who I am now.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you were talking about, the mental resilience, because it sounds like from the get-go, one thing I thought about when you were talking about, you decided to switch your mindset of, okay, well, I can't do these things at the moment, so I'm going to do this instead. I thought right from the get-go, that's strong mental resilience there, because not a lot of people can just do that. They
No.
would probably sit more in the victim stage and kind of feel that everything's going wrong.
Mm.
And again, when you said that when the car was, I think when the car was up in the air, and how many thoughts went through your mind in what must have been no matter than I can imagine seconds before the car came back down. It just shows you, first of all, the power of the mind, but also just what goes on in all our heads, that so many thoughts go through our minds. It's in so many seconds. And then again, it's choosing the right thoughts to think, and to the right thoughts to think, and they just completely change the way that we feel, the way that we everything about us, just from those little thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's there's certain things you can't control that you in that moment I couldn't control, thinking, right, I've got to be calm here. It just, whatever happened. And I think probably I'm lucky, and I have the kind of privilege that I've been exposed to like high pressure environments since I was really, really small, so I can slow things down and try and take things in, and kind of work out the bits that I need to worry about or focus on or not. And I think, the one bit that really almost is a bit unnerving is that I didn't think about the fact that I couldn't, could I or could I not move my feet? I didn't think about that. So I don't know whether because I could still move them that it didn't basically register with me. But that's the thing that, yeah, I didn't really think too much about, which is strange. And then it was only afterwards that I thought, actually, do you know what, it is actually quite serious, and it could have been a whole lot worse. So yeah, I think that was my mum's instant thought was, oh, goodness, is she paralyzed? What's the situation from here? And I remember very early in that call, when I said I broke my back, I said, I can still move, don't worry, like I can still move, because I knew that's where my mum's mind would go. But again, it's kind of, when you say about having the mental kind of resilience and strength to be able to, I suppose, direct what could have been despair and sadness into getting fit again. Because I literally wouldn't, you have nothing else to do apart from play on an animal farm. My farm was great. It was so successful. That's basically all I did. But was it a little DS thing? It was actually when we were in America, and I said to my other half, "Can you go and like get me some things to like keep myself entertained?" So I wasted a lot of time on that, which I'm pleased to have had, because actually one thing with wearing the neck brace and so on is you can't, like, I couldn't sit or lay till I watched TV. I was just staring at the ceiling. So my arms got quite strong from like holding stuff out in front of me. I dropped things on my head a fair few times. But yeah, it's a mental strength of, I've got not, what else can I do? I either sit here in squalor and sadness and think, poor me, or I pull my finger out, I do everything at 100% to make sure that I will get in a car, next season. And I think there was a lot of people, in fact, I know there were a lot of people that didn't think I'd be either able to race again or definitely not able to race the next season. And I worked with my neurosurgeon and my physio really, really closely and really, really hard. And I really did push myself to, get ahead of where I was at. And I think one thing that is really crucial, especially for people that are coming back from injuries, is like, you have to listen to your body. And I think your body will tell you when it's okay to move on to the next step. And you can try and move on to the next step, and if your body's saying, actually, do you know what, it's a bit painful, don't just keep pushing on stubbornly. Like, you have to slow down again. And there are certain things where I pushed forward on and thought, I'm just going to hold fire a little bit and then I'll try again next week. And I actually ended up probably being maybe 3 weeks ahead of the schedule of recovery, just from trying things and listening and knowing when to call it a day and step back and chill out. So when my neurosurgeon said about taking the brace off, I'd actually already been weaning myself off it for like a couple of weeks. So he said, "You can take the brace off now." I was like, "Yeah, great. I've already not been wearing it really," because I knew as well, it's I had to sleep in the thing. I had to, the only time I didn't have it on was when I was getting a shower. And you stand very, very still in the trying to not move too much when you think you've got a broken back. You don't want to be moving or twisting. And my body completely seized up because it's meant to, it was meant to be held in that position. So I lost like 5 kilos of muscle. I lost all my core strength, all my trunk strength. So even though I got out of the brace, probably the hardest bit in terms of work was to come. And I knew I was on a deadline to try and get back in the car. So we made it work, and I got back in a car. So I did it at the end of October, and I got back in a car, I think it was this end of April. So November, December, January, February, March, April, 6 months.
Yeah, that's not a long time at all.
No, and it was sore. And the first race at Miami was very tough. Having said that, I actually was matching my best finish from the previous year during that race, and then someone hit me off. And again, the first thing that I thought was, I need to let my mum know that I'm okay. And actually, it was almost a little bit of relief to, have been like, okay, someone's just hit me, we've had a collision, but actually I'm okay. And, I don't have to worry about that. Because there were definitely moments where I thought, I can't do this anymore. And my head's gone. I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that, I'm not driving properly. And I remember during, I think it was free practice 1 at Miami, where it was a kind of street circuit, which they're pretty daunting at the best of times. You have to you can't go out and be 100% straight away. You have to build up and get closer and closer to the walls and so on. And I remember during free practice 1, there was a point where I went down the back straight and I just thought, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. And I almost had like a little mini panic attack in the car, and I thought, I can't do this. And then I remember thinking, well, yeah, you can. You've always done it. And it's only going to get better. Like, this is just, you've basically ripped the plaster off now. Like, it's going to sting initially, but it will get better. And yeah, I was okay from there. I still have to work on things, but that certainly was a bit of I came to a crossroads and I either go and say, no, I'm not doing this anymore, or I say yes and, work on the bits that I needed to work on.
Well, I guess when you have a dream and you want to continue following your dream, no matter kind of what life throws in your way, you still push towards your dream in whatever capacity you possibly can. And trying something again for the first time, whatever it might be, even if you've done it hundreds and thousands and millions of times before, doing it again for the very first time after, whatever it is that you've been through, it's the most daunting thing, and your mind just can't comprehend and compute what is going on. It's like, no, 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 we're not doing this. Like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. But it's almost like, no, but we are doing this. But it's kind of the battle with ourselves of
Yeah.
of the devil and the angel. Yes, no, yes, no. We can, we can't, we can, we can't.
Yeah. I basically enlisted the help of a kind of sports psychologist, and I remember in the lead up to the season starting, I wasn't sleeping. I was laid in bed and I was just thinking, I don't know whether I'm making the right decision here, getting back in car, because, the chance of having a crash again at some point is going to happen. It's not if, it's when. And, I was worried of, is my spine now in a position where if I have another crash, like I'm at higher risk of being paralyzed, because I just really, that's the one, a bit of a fear. I really would hate to, have that happen to me. And yeah, I remember I was just laid awake, tossing and turning, and I was just feeling really anxious, and I just felt uncomfortable. And I was speaking to this sports psychologist, and she said, your brain basically is almost split into two, and you kind of have a survival part of your brain, and you have your autonomous driving part of your brain. And she was like, the autonomous driving part, like that's what you've done the last 20 years. Like that's, how to drive, how to drive quick, what to do, and all that kind of stuff. You always have your survival part of your brain there, but it's usually that your autonomous side of your brain is in charge, and your survival part is there in the background because you need it. You need it to be like, right, watch out for that, and it helps with reactions and ultimately keeping yourself alive. But she said at the moment, your survival part of your brain is in charge, and that's the one that's making the calls, that's the one that's making the shots, and your autonomous brain isn't allowed to do what you do. And she said, you need to find a way to reassure that survival part of your brain. And, she said, what is it? What is it that you're worried about? And, I had a really honest conversation with her. And, I said, well, I'm just worried that I'm going to end up paralyzed if I have a crash, and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, how would you reassure those worries? And I said, well, I suppose I need to speak to my consultant and ask him these questions, and he needs to give me a really honest answer. And she said, well, that's what you need to do. So I arranged a call with him, and I just laid it all out, all these questions and worries and really extreme things and really horrible things to think about and stuff like that. And, he said that I was basically no more likely to injure myself in that way now as I was before. He said, if anything, where you've broken your back is actually now stronger. He said, if you were going to have the exact same crash again, it wouldn't be that bit that would break, it'd be somewhere else. So he said, you haven't got a weakness there now. You should have the same mentality as you had beforehand, which is obviously very easy to say, and it's very difficult to actually make the mind believe. And, when things are, I suppose, you're under pressure or you're worrying about things, to stop your mind from kind of, I suppose, automatically heading towards the survival route. And that has absolutely been the hardest thing, and it's still the hardest thing now to win that battle. And it's an ongoing thing that every single racer have to work with, but it's getting better for sure. And that's the part that I suppose in my head I thought, well, I'll just fix myself, I'll make sure physically I'll fix myself and I'll be fine. And I underestimated the mental side of it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, isn't it? We all know when something happens to us physically, that physically, we are going to, improve or get stronger in whatever way, shape, and form we can. But mentally, we don't realize the impact it's probably about to have and it's going to have. And I think it's a lot of people live in the state for whatever it is that they're going through, in the fight or flight state. And I like the way that you kind of went through it and you explained everything about the two different sides of the brain. And there's a survival mode, and it's how we battle with our own minds in whatever way, some of us every single day. and how we, how we win even the smallest of battles. And some of them can be tiny for some people.
Yeah.
We never have to know what they are, but those small battles, and we don't win every single one of them, but it's like one of those steps where you don't see how far you're going. You don't see how much further you're going every day. But when you then look back, whether it be in a week, a month, a year,
Mm.
you can actually see how many of the little battles you did win to get
Yeah.
you to who you are today.
And I think it's important to, yes, the big goals are the ones that are juicy and the ones that we aim for, and they're the ones that, when you get there, it's a big win. But actually, you're never going to get there without the little ones. And the big goal that you get to is a very small in terms of time frame, and the journey to get there is very, very long. And I read a quote, I think, the other day, or I saw a video, and it was kind of like, especially with athletes or elite kind of performance driven people, is that we're always looking for that next high. We're always saying, oh, when I get that drive, or when I win that championship, or when I'm successful at this, or I race for that team, or whatever. And once you get there, you win the drive. You're like, cool, right, what's next? Right, I really want to win this championship. So you're never satisfied. You're always looking for the next high. And actually, that's quite sad, because in 20, 30 years' time, you'll look back and you'll say, that championship was really good fun. I really enjoyed it. I made lots of friends. And but when you're in the moment, you don't realize we're very selfish, our athletes. We're kind of always about getting that next fix. And I really tried to make sure that I took the time during my recovery to look at where I'd started and look at where it ended. And even midway through the recovery, to start off with, I was in my neck and back brace, and I was just doing bodyweight exercises. Like even leaning over like the sink to brush my teeth was so painful, and I had to make sure that my posture was right, and I was doing everything as I should be. So even just holding the weight of my head, which is why I had the neck brace on, basically to make sure that all the weight of my head was on the back of my spine, because I'd crushed the front of my vertebrae. So if my weight was even slightly forward, I would heel with a hunchback. So it was basically to keep all the weight on the back of my spine. I just do little things like that. And I had to do that because, as I say, I'm a very active person, and I like to keep busy, and I like to keep my mind occupied. And just little things like that was just something to do. And it was a productive something to do. And that's the kind of stuff that when I look back, I think, yeah, good for you. And, you got to see all your friends and family. There is a slight silver lining to it that, usually we're all over the place traveling, and, we never see our friends and family. And actually, I was laid at home in my hometown up in Yorkshire, and I got to see all my friends, all my family. Almost every other day, people were popping in because they knew, obviously, I was immobile and probably getting bored. And, there was a lot of help online as well. I was unlucky that basically kind of some insurance I had didn't end up doing what it should have done to cover the bills it needed to. And, I was thinking, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. I'm going to be able to pay for my house, all that kind of stuff. And, it really, really showed me actually how many people did care about me and supported me in what I was doing. And, I don't wish to have been in that situation to kind of, I suppose, see and realize how many supporters I have out there. But it was really, really humbling, and nice to see, I suppose, the effect and positive effect that I have on people externally as well, which, to me, I'm just doing what I love. I'm doing a sport that I love, and I'm very driven to do that. But actually, we have a much wider impact on people than we probably realize.
And I think what you were talking about is when you look back, it's not, it's not living in the past, but looking back and just being proud of the small
Exactly.
feats that you got through, and looking back and thinking, well, I did that. Wow, that was pretty
Yeah.
cool. I did that, and now look at me now.
Yeah. My friends always, they say stuff to me, and it does make me giggle. Like, I was going to join a netball team the other week because when I was younger, I used to play every single sport going. And like, since I've moved down south, I don't play any like team sport. And mainly because I'm, I don't want to get injured and ruin my season. And I live just opposite like a fitness centre, and they do like netball, get back to netball bits and bobs. And I was saying to my friend, I was like, oh, I don't know. And she was like, Abbie, you broke your back and got back into a car in like 5.5 months. She's like, I think you can go back to netball. Right. And I'm like, okay, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Sometimes we just need someone to remind us.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can't do it ourselves. We just need someone to give us a little prod to go, okay, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, yeah. And it's strange that, a lot of people say, how, I suppose, strong and resilient I was to do or to recover from what I'd had. But again, I can't really see it because I'm like, what else would I have done?
Yeah.
And probably until you're in that situation, you don't know. But I'm lucky to have been brought up with the mindset of, don't rest on your laurels, don't sit back and blame people and blame yourself and blame whatever. Just get on and
Mm.
I suppose try and move forward and make a better person of yourself. And I think that's testament to my family that have brought me up in that way. And if there's ever anyone that I see that's been in a similar situation, I'll always offer support. And unfortunately, sausage curbs are still being used in certain championships or certain circuits, and people are still breaking their back. It was only last weekend at a track in the UK, someone broke their back on a sausage curb, and I'll always try and reach out to those people and say, look, I'm here if you need to chat or you want to ask anything. Like, I'm always all ears for stuff like that.
Yeah, and on the point when you were saying about people could think, I could never get through something like that. I could never be that brave or resilient and things like that. A lot of the people that I speak to with this, and just in general, they all say a very similar thing, and myself included, which is, first of all, you don't also know how strong you are until you're forced to be strong. But if, God forbid, you are put in that position and you're saying, I could never be as brave as you, or I could never, be as mentally resilient, you could, because if that is what you're faced with, that's all you know and that's all you've got to do.
Yeah.
So it kind of does come out of you, this mental strength and this resilience. It does come out.
Yeah. Whether you are mentally kind of conscious of thinking, right, I'm going to do this and that to make myself feel better or move forward, or whether your body's just like doing it without realizing. And it's only then afterwards when you look back and you say, yeah, okay, actually I was able to do that. And, ultimately people can say to you, why don't you go and do this or go do that? Or, if you going through a breakup or something and you're feeling really naff, sometimes you need to have that time to kind of deal with it. I remember when I broke my back in America, they gave me this brace to wear, and it had the neck collar on it. And when he said, oh, you're gonna have to wear it for 12 weeks, I was thinking, oh my God, that's like a lot of time. And I thought, well, maybe not though, because actually on the day after I broke my back, a kid racing in Formula 4 at the same track, same event, he did this same thing on the same sausage curb and broke his back as well. So he actually had the same neck collar on as me, and I flew back home, and he went to his consultant in the US, and the consultant basically said, you don't need to wear the one with like the neck collar, you can wear this other one. And I remember thinking, oh, that's great, because I think actually when I hopefully speak to my consultant, they are going to say that I don't need to wear the neck collar and I can just wear one with, just a back thing on, because, wearing a back brace, yes, it isn't great, but actually at least you can still move your head and move your neck. And it's very claustrophobic and restrictive to wear a neck collar. And I thought, oh my God, he's going to tell me I can wear just a back collar. And spoke to him and he was like, no. He said, this neck collar is not good. We need one that's even higher. And I was thinking, oh, right, okay. This was on over Zoom call. So finished the chat, hung the phone up, and I just burst into tears. And I was like sat in mum and dad, and I just burst into tears, bawling my eyes out. And I was like, I didn't think he was going to say that. I thought he was going to say I can, get rid of this. And I was like, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be so horrible for the next like however long. And I needed to do that. I needed to deal with that emotion and kind of get that, I suppose, frustration and fear and anxiety and sadness done. And as soon as I had that cry, I remember I laid in bed all night crying. I was up till, because I wasn't really sleeping anyway, because it was so painful and I was on crazy drugs. And I spent all night crying. And it was really nice that actually I was speaking to the mum of the kid who broke his back in America. And obviously time difference, they were awake when it was early hours of the morning in the UK. So I was speaking to her and, I was like, oh, I can't really sleep, I'm a bit upset. And it was nice to have that support. And then once I got that evening and night done and out the way, from then on, it was just, right, let's not have a pity party. Let's crack on and let's go. But you do sometimes need to have that time where you sit with your emotions and, that, she was very, very good at at helping me to deal with it and understand what I was doing. Sometimes you need that external help. Sometimes you have it internally to, dig yourself out the hole. But I think everyone's different to, how they cope with things and what they need to move forward and get better as well.
Yeah, and for some people it can take, a day of feeling those emotions. It can take a week, it can take a month. And just because somebody else's journey of healing in whatever way it is completely different to yours, there's no point following someone else's timeline because your timeline is so different to who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's very easy nowadays with everything being on the internet to compare yourself to others. And I think it's you can look and think, oh, aren't they doing great? Their recovery is so quick. Use them as inspiration. But ultimately, like I said earlier on when we were having a chat, you need to listen to yourself. You need to listen to your body and go at your own body's pace, because, that other person might have rushed their recovery. They might have, rushed their physio. They might have ignored their doctors. And yes, they might be back in a car quicker than I am. But actually, they might now injure themselves, or they might not be as strong. So you have to kind of, I suppose, run your own kind of journey, or don't run, lay horizontal your own journey. And it will get to the end when it's ready to get to the end, and you'll move forward as and when it is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. And how are you doing now then?
Not too bad. Good days and bad days. I feel like I can't complain. I can't be miserable about anything, because ultimately could have been a whole lot worse. I can still walk, I can still race, I can still do what I've always done. But it just takes a little bit more maintenance and a little bit more, I suppose, grit to keep going. Certain aspects it is quite sore, and there's certainly, as I mentioned, with the kind of mental side of it, that's probably one of the kind of tougher sides. Still pushing on, still training a lot, still building strength back up actually from when the injury happened. So it's a long process, and I knew it would be. Yes, I was able to get back in a car at 6 months, but I knew it would be a good couple of years of trying to build back up to where I was. And things have changed now with the workout routines that I need to do, and the kind of areas I need to target, and things that I need to now focus on moving forward. Even, to being an old lady, there's certain things that I'm going to have to stay on top of to, make sure that I maintain a good quality of life, and, that it doesn't affect, I'm going to probably get arthritis and all that kind of stuff. That's going to happen. But if I can kind of manage it and not let it spiral or get more out of hand than it needs to, then that's exactly what I'm going to try and do.
Yeah, and I think it takes a lot of trial and error really as well. You'll continuously try different things, and some will work, some won't work for you.
Yeah, exactly. And there were certain things that I probably didn't do or didn't try before. For example, during the kind of time where it was really painful, I'd use CBD drops, and they're all informed in sport and they're all kind of okay to use, but I would always kind of stay away from it just in case. But actually, because I wasn't sleeping, and so many people that kind of, I suppose, came out of the woodwork and reached out and said, look, actually, I broke my back and I found these to really help, and this and that. And a friend of mine in Australia, he'd broken his back karting, and he said, he was saying, how's the sleeping, and, how's it going? And I was like, well, I'm not. He said, try these, they really work, but, you have to get quite high dosage of it, and it should help take the edge off. And, I was able to sleep after that. So, there's certain things that, I suppose it's opened my eyes too. And, I think, again, it's similar to what we've mentioned previously. Some things will work for one person that might not work for another. But I think, you have to keep open-minded and, try all sorts of things that are available to maintain yourself, get better, and help yourself through whatever it is that you're going through.
Of course, and if something doesn't work 1, 2, 10, 20 times, don't stop, because that 21st or that 51st or that 76th time might work for you. So it's just a case of just, it's the cliche thing of never giving up, but it really is just never giving up.
It's keeping that head, your head in the right place and your head motivated to keep trying. That's all. That's the hardest part, is the brain. The brain's a pain in the backside. You have to keep it on track all the time, and it wants to throw a tantrum when it wants, and you can be in a really good place, and then all of a sudden your brain's like, no, I'm not having it today. and it can be completely, a curveball, and you think, where's that come from? But as long as your end goal of whatever it might be, you still have that in the distance and you're still working towards that. And for me now, it's just trying to stay physically fit and dealing with the kind of mental and physical side of now what I've got to deal with, and just try and be as good as I can be for as long as I can be. That's my goal now. Whereas before it was, to be, I suppose, racing for X, Y, and Z. Now, yes, I still want that goal, but I've kind of got a little side quest as well that I've got to do at the same time, which, it's part of life's rich tapestry, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. We're kind of always going down one way, and then life throws something, and we can stay on that path, but we can maybe change course, divert, or we can be taken to completely different paths, and that's kind of, I guess, what happens with life.
Yeah. And I also think it's okay to not have like a big end goal. I think as long as you are content and you're happy kind of bumbling along, then do that. I'm jealous of those people, actually. I'm so jealous of those that kind of, they seem to be happy just bumbling along, getting on with life, doing this, doing that. They haven't got like a big, I suppose, thing that drives them and passion, whereas I've always had that from a kid. And as I mentioned, we're kind of always chasing the next high, and I have to force myself to look back and make sure that I am enjoying what's happened, the moment that I'm in, and all that kind of stuff. But I think that comes with being, I suppose, quite self-aware of where you're at, where your brain's at the time, which again, I've been lucky to, I suppose, have that from a young age because of the sport that I've done. And not even just motorsport, all the kind of things that I've done as a kid, meeting people, learning how to lose, learning how to win, learning how to have dignity with both of them. All the things that sport, I think, teaches you, which, if there's ever any kind of advice, I suppose, I can offer to people as well, is just try and be active with things and give yourself a focus, whether that's a big focus or a little focus. For me at the moment, it's trying to make sure that I get on top of my head, trying to make sure that my autonomous brain is in charge all the time, because my survival brain is still hanging around and he needs to back off. But yeah, each person, whatever they go through, even, it doesn't have to be something so traumatic like an injury or something like that, just general day-to-day stuff that sometimes gets tough. Like, I think if you apply the same processes and the same mindset to that kind of stuff, then you'll get through it, whatever it is. Whether it's you class it as something big or something small, other people might class it different. It doesn't matter. It affects people in different ways.
That's like a win is a win for whoever you are, whatever you're doing. If it's a win for you, it doesn't have to be a win for someone else, but a win is a win.
Yeah. And don't be embarrassed by it, how big or how small you are. Like, you said about, looking back at the little wins and the little achievements that you get, like, that is important. They are more important than the big win. Yes, the big win feels really, really good because you get that instant massive hit of adrenaline and, dopamine. But the little wins you have to take, and don't be jealous, or try and not be jealous of other people's big wins, because again, from the outside you might think it looks really easy, what they've gone from A to B and they've won this massive prize. Well, you don't know what the journey's been like. And a lot of people, I suppose, look at me and say, well, she was amazing, she was able to get back in the car and she's done this, done that. But actually, there are certain things that you go through and you have to deal with that now on a normal day-to-day basis, when I'm not racing, I'm not doing anything, I'm just chilling at home, that I'm in constant pain with certain things that I do, and that's stuff that you have to find a way to deal with. And everyone, it's again the cliche saying is that everyone's going through their own little battles, so everyone needs to cut everyone a little bit of slack, I think, as well.
I agree with you. I agree, because we're all going through our own little battles, and all our little wins just keep leading us to each of our big wins.
Yeah.
And that's kind of something we have to understand as well, is we just don't seem to see all the time that each little win is leading us towards the big ones.
Yeah. And even if you're not going forwards all the time, the whole two step back, one step forward or whatever, like, you still will eventually, you'll maybe jump 5 steps forward in one time. And as long as you try and make something to try and at least still keep going forward, whether that's slowly creeping forward or big chunks forward, it doesn't matter. Just try and go in the right direction.
Yeah, well, I kind of completely agree with what you were saying, in the sense of it. if it's not going to happen every day, because it's probably not going to happen every day. So you might not have, even the smallest wins of every day. And if you're not having it that day, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay. It doesn't have to always happen.
No.
And if you're not having it one day, that's okay. It's like you were saying, it's one step back to, it's one forward, two back quite a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll eventually get there. It's just sometimes it's very difficult to see the journey ahead of you and how to get there. But ultimately, you're not a mind reader. No one's a mind reader. No one can look into the future. So, rather than being so worried about the future and what's coming, just try and make the most of what you've got today and what's at present. And again, I understand it's very, very easy for me to say this, but, I've kind of been in some situations where I've had to do that. So if you can take control of your mind, let's look at Mary Earps, England footballer. She has been absolutely outstanding during this World Cup and even the Euros before. She's incredible. And if you look at her, you can tell her mindset is, I'm saving that ball. And there's absolutely no ounce in her mind of doubt. There's nothing in there being like, but what if you don't? It's, I'm saving that ball. And if she doesn't save it, she's like, well, I'm going to save the next one. It's not, she doesn't dwell on it. It's just, right, next. What's the next thing I need to do? Right, headstrong, let's go, let's do it. And you'd be surprised how, if you can take control of your mind, actually what you can accomplish in the long run.
I agree with you. I agree. Well, our mind is our best friend, but also our worst enemy.
Us, yeah. It is a pain in the backside.
I know.
I wish it was easy, but it's not. And it's an ongoing thing. You might think you unlock something and go, yes, right, I've cracked it, but yeah, it won't. And it's a developing kind of, I suppose it's always trying to, your mind's always trying to find ways to like outfox you. So yeah, I think it's very, I've really enjoyed looking into, I suppose inspirational, motivational things from other people. I spent a lot of, obviously my time laid down, and I listened to a lot of podcasts, a lot of the performance like mindset, speaking and listening to people that have, done massive achievements, gold medalists, all that kind of stuff. And just anything you can take. You might listen to an hour-long podcast, but if you can take like just a little nugget of information that you think actually that really is quite useful, and just use it. And then you might listen to someone else who's completely different. You might have a Olympic gold medalist, and then you might have someone that's into neuroscience, or someone that works down the road at a florist or whatever and got run over. Like, it doesn't matter. Each person is on these different journeys, and whatever they go through, you can absolutely always learn something from someone. And I think that's another part where if you literally are clutching at straws and thinking, how can I better myself? Like, how can I learn something new that I might be able to use? And if you're completely out of ideas, just put a podcast on, listen to that, listen to someone interesting, and hopefully someone might listen to this and think the same from, something that I might have said, which will be cool.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be cool. And it's interesting because I heard something, or I saw something only, I think it was yesterday actually, and it encompasses everything you were just saying. And what I saw was, it was 4 words, and it blew my mind. It said, new level, new devil. And I just thought, wow, that is so true, because we get through, whatever that task of the day is, that win of the day or the month, whatever it is, and we get to the next level, and then we're just faced with something brand new. But it's constantly evolving to keep leveling up. We have to face all these devils, but we just keep going, and that's just kind of the way of the world.
Yeah. And ultimately, if it was easy, like plain sailing, it would be boring, and the highs wouldn't be so high. Like, it wouldn't. And I know that's, you think, oh, that's a really, sometimes you want a little bit of an easy ride to get through certain things, but genuinely it would not be, the highs wouldn't be so high. And, when I race on circuit, if there's ever a race that I'm in and I'm like 15 seconds in the lead, it's boring. It's so boring. I'd rather be battling. Yes, you think, oh, this is great. I'm going to, like, an absolute hero here. I've absolutely smashed this race. I'm fast, I'm this, I'm that. But actually, why are we doing it? Well, we're doing it to race and to have fun and enjoy it. And I think there maybe are certain people that would rather have that, like, just win all the time. But, those that are, proper athletes, proper sports people, in terms of, they like that drive and they like the competition, they'd rather be racing it. They'd rather have a little bit of a challenge, because then when you get to that end goal that you've maybe been working for and you get it, the highs are insane. And a bit of strife on the way is, I think it's definitely a positive thing, because otherwise you never learn, you never get better. You always want that competitor to push you forward and to make you better and to challenge you. Otherwise, you don't know what you're kind of capable of reaching, really, the highest level, if you're never challenged and never pushed.
Hard work pays off. It really, really, really pays off. And in some instances, we are our own competitors. Our minds are our competitors. So it's battling with our minds to, I guess, win.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you have to do that whilst battling 20 other people on the grid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask then, to finish up, what advice would you give to somebody so you obviously, there was fear getting back into a car. So what advice would you give to somebody that is fearful to do something that their whole life they love doing, or they knew how to do, and everything was that way inclined, and suddenly it's a whole different mind game for them, and they are terrified to start again, or to just, get back in their own version of their car? What would you say to them?
I would say make baby steps. Don't think, well, I'm going to rush straight in. For example, let's say a football player or netball player, rush straight in and do a full match, or run straight in and do a tackle, on your first match back after breaking your leg. Like, make baby steps, and don't, you are going to have to push yourself out your comfort zone at some point, but you will know when you get there, when it's the right time to do that. And I think, as we've actually both mentioned briefly, it's like you're on your own timeline, and don't feel pressured by others to kind of run before you can walk, but also try and have the confidence to throw yourself in it when the time's right. And like, as I mentioned, you will absolutely know when the time is right. And if the time does never arrive, that it's never right, that is also okay. And these things happen for a reason, I think, and whether that's to teach you one thing or another, or if that door shuts, you might find another avenue that actually you get a similar high from. Maybe not the same kind of a high, but it's a different kind of passion or a different kind of content that you get from something else. But I think take it at your own speed, baby steps towards the goal that you're trying to achieve, and just have confidence that humans are very, very strong, resilient creatures. And I know sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but we absolutely are. And as I mentioned earlier, again, like, take confidence and take little nuggets of information from things such as this podcast, from other I suppose kind of areas of like content banks of stuff from people that from all different walks of life. And you might disagree with 99% of what someone says, but the 1% that you might agree with, you might take home and actually think that's the best little nugget of information that you've had in a long time. So keep your eyes and ears open to what there is around you. Be a bit of a sponge, I say, absorb things, and you can decide the ones that you want to keep hold of and the other ones that you want to get rid of, and that you've got no use for. But the kind of, I suppose, content of information that we've got from our fellow humans, competitors, rivals, friends, family, I think that's there to be used. So please do so.
Yeah, that's perfect. No, I love that. Thank you very much. So is there anything else that you'd like to share today?
Don't think so. That's it. Other support Rebellion Motorsport. So it's a new team I've set up this year. Rebellion Motorsport, we're trying to basically do good for motorsport. Motorsport is a sport that I absolutely love, but it's very difficult to access. It takes a lot of money, a lot of networks, all that kind of stuff. So what we're trying to do is basically create a team where we can help people on their journey, whether that's drivers that haven't really got the funding 100% to kind of come in and hopefully try and help some new drivers on their journey, mechanics, engineers, all that kind of stuff. We want to try and give them that kind of first step on the ladder to hopefully, a long-term career in motorsport. So if you like motorsport and you want to help support us and do good and see what we're up to, then please follow Rebellion Motorsport.
Absolutely. I will make sure to share the links and the social media handles everywhere for you. So
awesome. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
That's okay. My pleasure. I'll go back to getting on the simulator now.
Enjoy. As we wrap up today with Abbie, remember that while we often chase the next big high, it's the journey itself that truly matters. Celebrate those little wins, for a win is a win. We all face our own battles, and our minds can be our closest ally and our fiercest opponent. So this week, remind yourself that it is okay to take one step forward and sometimes 2 steps back. Or maybe it isn't even back. What might feel like back is actually a step towards healing in another direction. New level, new devil. Trust in your healing process, as progress is not always in a straight line. So stay tuned for more incredible stories, and thank you for joining us. Your journey is worth every single step. So until next time, keep moving forward, one step at a time. And remember that you have the power to get back up.